The night was one of celebration, a book party, a gathering of Washington's most well-placed insiders, the kind of people who didn't just attend events, they were the reason events happened. John Whitman, a photographer for Washington Dossier, captured it in a single frame. Peter Malatesta was at the center of it all, signing copies of Party Politics, a book filled with the kind of knowing details only someone like him could provide. Washington wasn't just about elections and legislation. It was about access, about who sat at which table, about the invisible currents of influence that moved beneath the surface. And few people understood those currents better than Peter. Pamela Hauer, the wife of the real estate magnate Ray Hauer, stood beside him, the perfect Washington hostess, a woman whose name appeared in every society column, a friend to senators and diplomats, someone who knew the art of putting the right people together in a room. A decade later, she would take on the music industry, pushing for warning labels on explicit albums, fighting against songs like Darling Nikki by Prince, Sugar Walls by Sheena Easton, and Eat Me Alive by Judas Priest. Songs she and the Parents Music Resource Center claimed were corrupting America's youth. But on this night, she was here, glass in hand, laughing at the edge of history. Behind them, Joan Ambrose, smiling brightly, the wife of Miles Ambrose, who shaped America's customs and anti-drug laws. The people in the room knew each other, not just by name, but by reputation. They were the ones who whispered over drinks at the Four Seasons bar, the ones who could set a career in motion or quietly end one. There was an ease to them, a practiced charm, the kind of confidence that comes from knowing that their world, their Washington, was not the one seen by the rest of the country. And in the middle of it all was Peter. He had come to Washington through politics as an aide to Vice President Spiro Agnew, working inside the corridors of power, learning its rhythms, its secrets. He had seen Agnew rise and fall, watched as scandal consumed him, and understood, perhaps before others did, that power was a thing that shifted, that it moved like water, always finding a new place to settle. When Agnew resigned in disgrace, Peter didn't leave Washington. He adapted. He found his way into the city's social bloodstream, where access wasn't granted by a title or an election, but by knowing the right names, by being the person who could bring together the lobbyist and the senator, the Hollywood star and the fundraiser, the foreign dignitary and the fixer who could make things happen. And so he created Pisces. It was unlike anything Washington had seen before. The city was full of clubs, places where men in dark suits drank scotch and talked about policy, places with history, with prestige, with rules. But Pisces had none of that. It was in the basement of a Georgetown building, a space transformed into something that felt both exclusive and lawless. The old clubs belonged to another era. Pisces belonged to now. The music pulsed through its walls, the deep throb of disco of an era shifting. Roller skaters filled the streets above, Studio 54 ruled New York, and here in Washington, Pisces was where the real players gathered. The walls were lined with enormous aquariums, sharks gliding silently through the water, watching over senators and celebrities, spies and socialites. The Carter inauguration had been a spectacle, a moment of change in the city, but the real party wasn't in the grand ballrooms, it was here. Warren Beatty was in the corner, Jack Nicholson nearby, Andy Warhol watching it all with his usual detached amusement. This was a different Washington, a place where power played after dark, where hands were shaken in booths, where conversations carried just loud enough to be heard by the right ears. There were whispers, of course. There always are. Some said Pisces was more than a club, that in those back rooms microphones were hidden, that private words weren't always as private as they seemed. Others said that the mob had its hands in the place, that behind the mirrored walls there were things happening that would never make it into the newspapers. But those who came through the doors of Pisces knew better than to ask too many questions. Peter understood that better than anyone. But Washington changes. The energy shifts, the tides pull back. The Reagan era brought a new kind of power, a return to formality, to structure. Pisces faded. The stars stopped coming. The whispers grew quiet. And one day it was gone, the aquariums emptied, the music silenced. The basement became something else, and eventually it was nothing more than a bookstore, shelves standing where senators once sat, the ghosts of conversations lost among the rows of paperbacks. Peter moved on, as he always had. He wrote his book, he kept his stories. Some he told, others he didn't. He died on May 15, 2016. The obituary was brief. No grand reflections, no tell-all memoirs. Just the quiet exit of a man who had once been at the center of Washington's most exclusive club, whose name had been whispered in the same rooms where senators made deals and celebrities let their guard down. It didn't mention Pisces. It didn't mention the nights where power slipped between fingers like smoke, where the right word at the right moment could change the course of a career. It didn't mention the stars who passed through the doors, the senators who whispered in dark corners, the deals that were sealed with a drink and a nod. But those who were there remember. And if you stand outside that bookstore on M Street late at night, you might hear it the faint echo of a bass line, the distant sound of a glass clinking against a marble bar, a whisper carried on the wind. Washington has always been a city of secrets, and some never truly fade away. Scan to explore the lost world of Pisces, Malatesta, and Washington's underground power scene.